One of the strongest earthquakes in Texas history was felt in parts of North Texas today. The magnitude 5.1 earthquake.
It continues
this is a very strong
to rattle
earthquake.
pretty strong here.
8:21 here on the air. We're experiencing very strong shaking.
Wow.
I think we need to get under the desk.
Minutes ago, scientists evacuated Texas following its strongest ever earthquake. A significant earthquake struck the western part of the state, registering a magnitude of 5.1. This event was not isolated, as several other tremors have been felt throughout the region. Experts are divided on the causes. Could the relentless pursuit of energy be awakening a dormant giant beneath the Texan soil? Explore the unfolding events with us as we brace ourselves for the unexpected twists and turns ahead. The evolving seismic landscape of Texas. Some experts suggest that the natural tectonic movements tied to Texas's geological history are the main drivers of seismic activity in the region. After all, the state sits on a landscape shaped by millions of years of tectonic shifts, and occasional earthquakes are part of the Earth's natural processes. These scientists argue that the underlying fault lines and ancient geological formations are still active and capable of producing tremors. However, others believe that human activity, particularly drilling for oil and gas, might be contributing to the instability of the ground. This has sparked ongoing debates about the potential role of industrial practices such as hydraulic fracturing, fracking, and wastewater injection in triggering man-made or induced earthquakes. Tensions are rising as a new report reveals a worrying spike in seismic activity near major oil fields. This data could have serious consequences for the industry. With a major earthquake expected soon, the question is, are we just watching a disaster unfold, or do we still have time to change the outcome? The possibility that oil and gas extraction could be influencing seismic activity raises a critical question. Why is Texas seeing an increase in earthquakes, and what actions should be taken to address this growing concern? While natural tectonic activity cannot be controlled, human-induced seismicity is an area where regulation and mitigation may make a difference. Studies have shown that in some areas, the deep injection of wastewater from oil and gas operations has led to increased pressure on fault lines, potentially causing them to slip and trigger earthquakes. This ongoing debate underscores the need for further research into the causes of increased seismic activity in Texas. Whether the culprit is purely natural, entirely human-made, or a combination of both, understanding the root cause is essential for determining the best course of action. Meanwhile, experts agree on one thing: regardless of the cause, Texans must be prepared for the possibility of more frequent earthquakes, and should continue to focus on improving building codes, public awareness, and safety measures to reduce the risks associated with seismic events. In Hermleigh, the normally peaceful streets were filled with the sounds of crumbling brick, shattering glass, and the startled cries of residents rushing outside. Small cracks snaked through the roads, trees swayed unnaturally, and power lines trembled ominously. For those unaccustomed to seismic activity, the sensation was bewildering, as if the very foundation of their world was momentarily turned upside down. Even miles away in Dallas, people reported feeling the quake's ripple effect, causing widespread concern and confusion in a region more familiar with tornadoes than tremors. But this wasn't the first sign of trouble. Smaller earthquakes had been happening in the area, each one leading up to this larger event. Earlier in the week, a 4.9 quake had already worried locals, and the day before, a 2.5 tremor rattled the area. These smaller quakes seemed to be building up to the larger one that followed. The U.S. Geological Survey (USGS) uses specialized tools to monitor and study earthquakes, even in places like West Texas, where earthquakes don't happen often but can still be strong. Some of the key tools they use include seismometers, seismographs, and seismograms. A seismometer is a very sensitive device that picks up on the shaking caused by earthquake waves. It's often inside a seismograph, which is the machine that records these movements. The record it creates is called a seismogram. This shows scientists how much and how long the ground moved, which helps them understand how powerful the earthquake was. The USGS uses the Richter scale along with other tools to measure the strength of an earthquake. The Richter scale gives a number that shows how much energy the earthquake released. Although it's still well known, scientists now mostly use the moment magnitude scale because it gives a clearer and more accurate picture of the earthquake's size. When it comes to studying earthquakes, scientists look at seismic waves. These are the waves that travel through the earth when an earthquake happens. There are two main types: body waves and surface waves. Body waves move through the earth, and they are the first ones that seismometers detect after an earthquake. There are two types of body waves: P waves, which compress and expand the ground, and S waves, which shake the ground side to side. Surface waves come later and usually cause more noticeable shaking and damage, but this isn't the worst part. Figuring out exactly where an earthquake started is tricky. Scientists use something called the triangulation method. They compare the time it takes for P waves and S waves to reach different seismic stations. By knowing how fast these waves travel, they can find the earthquake's epicenter, or starting point. All these tools and methods are what help the USGS and other groups track earthquakes accurately. This information is really important because it can help improve earthquake prediction and make sure people have better safety plans. The people in the community felt the effects deeply. Windows broke, and older buildings not designed to handle such forces were damaged. Local officials in Scurry County quickly declared a state of emergency. Emergency teams were sent out to check on the damage, make sure people were safe, and start repairs, but this wasn't the worst part. Even though this state isn't known for earthquakes like California, the number of quakes in areas like the Permian Basin has been going up over the last 10 years. Many of these quakes are happening in areas where oil and gas are heavily extracted, suggesting that human activity might be playing a role in these seismic events. Luckily, despite the high magnitude, early reports showed that there wasn't a lot of major damage or injuries. However, there's still concern about the impact on buildings and infrastructure, especially older ones. In past earthquakes, there have been structural problems, especially in older buildings. The Texas Department of Emergency Management responded quickly, providing real-time data to help local governments and emergency workers make quick, informed decisions. This event is a clear reminder that even areas not usually prone to earthquakes need to be prepared for the unexpected. Officials were prepared to handle emergencies effectively. After a big earthquake, they kept a close eye on smaller tremors that followed. They studied the chances of more quakes and stressed the importance of staying alert. Moving forward, we will explore the legislative and environmental challenges that arise as Texas grapples with the dual threats of natural and induced seismicity. A guide to earthquake safety. Fast communication with the public and authorities became really important. It helped give timely warnings and got people ready to take quick action to protect themselves. With constant monitoring, both officials and residents stayed informed and ready, making sure everyone could share safety alerts and advice. Working with nearby emergency management teams was crucial. Part of this work included instructions on what to do during an earthquake, like staying inside and taking cover under sturdy furniture. This helped reduce panic and made sure people knew how to keep themselves safe. Clear and simple communication was key to keeping everyone calm and prepared. Officials encouraged people to make family emergency plans and pack emergency kits, especially since there were more tremors happening. These kits usually had water, non-perishable food, flashlights, batteries, and first aid supplies. Everything needed to be ready for an emergency. Local governments and emergency response teams have also taken proactive steps to educate communities about earthquake safety. Through outreach programs, they aim to ensure that residents understand the risks and are prepared, even in regions where large earthquakes are relatively uncommon, such as Texas. These efforts emphasize the importance of preparedness because, despite the rarity of major quakes, the potential for damage still exists. By raising awareness, officials hope to empower people with the knowledge and tools to protect themselves, their homes, and their belongings if a quake does occur. Workshops, public safety campaigns, and school programs are among the many ways communities are being educated about earthquake readiness. These initiatives teach essential skills such as how to create an emergency plan, secure heavy furniture, and identify safe areas within homes to take cover during shaking. They also stress the importance of having emergency kits on hand with supplies like water, non-perishable food, and first aid equipment. In addition to protecting people, these programs highlight ways to minimize property damage. Homeowners are encouraged to evaluate their buildings for potential vulnerabilities such as unbraced water heaters or weakened foundation walls, which can make homes more susceptible to earthquake damage. By focusing on preventative measures, these outreach efforts aim to reduce both the physical and financial impact of a potential quake. Even though Texas and similar areas may not see frequent seismic activity, the unpredictability of earthquakes makes preparation critical. These educational campaigns are helping to foster a culture of readiness, ensuring that communities are better equipped to respond and recover quickly in the event of an earthquake, no matter how rare. But that wasn't the biggest challenge. The community projects aimed at raising awareness included public service announcements, brochures, and seminars. After the recent seismic activity, officials and emergency teams reviewed their plans. They backed public campaigns on earthquake safety, talked about making buildings stronger, and pushed for tougher construction rules. Though large earthquakes are relatively rare in places like Texas, their occurrence has highlighted the critical importance of preparedness. Even in regions not typically associated with seismic activity, such events serve as a wake-up call for both residents and officials. In response, there have been ongoing discussions within government circles about implementing stricter building codes, especially in areas more susceptible to earthquakes. These proposed regulations aim to ensure that newly constructed buildings are designed to withstand the forces of a potential quake, enhancing public safety and minimizing damage. By focusing on modern engineering standards and structural resilience, these rules would provide an added layer of protection, making communities safer in the long run. Another big focus was making older buildings stronger. They looked at which buildings were at risk and worked to make them safer. Even though no one had been hurt yet, many nearby buildings weren't built to handle a strong quake, which meant there was a lot of potential for damage. The earthquake exposed weak spots in buildings and infrastructure, showing they weren't really built to stand up to a big seismic event. But this wasn't the end of the problem. Many buildings were still at risk and would need further upgrades to truly withstand future earthquakes. The first recorded earthquake in Texas is still an important point when talking about the state's geological activity. Another significant earthquake occurred in the east part of the state and is often mentioned in discussions about seismic events in the area. The Mexia-Wortham earthquake, with a magnitude of around 5, shook the region and showed that it is not immune to earthquakes. This earthquake was particularly significant because it struck an area crucial to Texas's rapidly expanding oil industry. At the time, the full implications of the event were not entirely clear, but it raised suspicions about a potential link between oil drilling and seismic activity. The idea that human activities could influence natural disasters was still a relatively new concept. However, it wasn't long before another quake, the Gladewater earthquake, which also registered a magnitude of 5, brought this issue into sharper focus. Occurring near active oil fields, it intensified concerns and prompted further investigation into whether oil extraction practices might be contributing to increased seismic activity. This growing body of evidence encouraged scientists and policymakers to take a closer look at how industrial processes could be affecting the Earth's stability, leading to further studies on the environmental impact of drilling operations and the broader question of human influence on natural events. This earthquake played a key role in proving that human activities like oil and gas extraction could indeed trigger earthquakes. It led to more research and the development of better tools to monitor and manage the risks of man-made earthquakes. But the story doesn't end there. The Gladewater earthquake also showed how older buildings in the area were vulnerable, making it clear that construction standards needed improvement to handle future earthquakes. As a result, local building codes were updated to make structures more resilient. She stood still, completely shocked by the strange feeling coming from the ground beneath her. It was a clear reminder that even people who are used to earthquakes can still be surprised by how different areas react during a quake. The local authorities acted quickly as soon as the earthquake warnings hit. Officials in Scurry County didn't waste any time before declaring an emergency. They wanted to prevent as much damage as possible and keep everyone safe. Even though big earthquakes are rare in Texas, the response was fast and focused on fixing any problems with roads and buildings right away. With continued vigilance and community cooperation, we move forward to the next chapter, ready to face new challenges together. The West Texas Earthquake Puzzle. Emergency teams were ready to help however they could. They made sure people had the supplies they needed and checked buildings to see if anything was damaged. Their goal was to keep the community informed and feeling secure. Brian Stump, a well-known expert from Southern Methodist University, was one of several scientists explaining what had happened. He pointed out that while earthquakes of this size happen across the country, they're not common in West Texas. That made this quake stand out, especially since it was part of a rare group of tremors in the area. But that wasn't the most puzzling part. This sudden increase in earthquakes got scientists very curious about what was causing them. There was a lot of debate about whether these quakes were natural or if human activities like fracking played a role. Although they didn't have clear answers yet, researchers kept digging through the data, hoping to find clues about whether human actions were making these natural events worse. This is important because if humans are partly responsible, it might be possible to find ways to reduce the damage in the future. Texas has now set up a large network of sensors to monitor earthquakes, especially in places like West Texas where they're not as common. This system, with its high-tech equipment, helps detect even small tremors. The data collected is essential for scientists to figure out important details like how strong the quake was, how deep it happened, and exactly where it started. But the questions didn't stop there. Scientists are still eager to figure out if activities like oil and gas drilling are making these earthquakes worse. This ongoing research doesn't just look at past data. It also involves new studies to see if certain practices, like the amount of pressure used in fracking, could increase the risk of quakes. Understanding this is key for both scientists and lawmakers so they can come up with plans to lower these risks. For instance, reducing the amount of pressure during fracking could potentially decrease the chances of these man-made earthquakes. While Texas has had its share of earthquakes over the years, it's not usually known as a place where big ones happen often. The recent 5.1 magnitude earthquake is notable not just because of its size, but because it happened in a place where large earthquakes don't usually occur. This raises serious concerns about the area's infrastructure, which wasn't built to handle strong quakes. People are starting to worry about safety because there have been more earthquakes lately. These earthquakes don't just damage buildings, they also affect the environment and economy. When the ground shakes, it can cause a lot of destruction, which is expensive to fix and can interrupt daily life. In West Texas, where the oil and gas industries are a big part of the local economy, the effects are even more serious. The damage to roads, buildings, and other structures doesn't just slow down business, it changes how people live their everyday lives. On top of that, there are concerns about fracking and how it might be hurting the environment. Fracking can sometimes contaminate the water supply and other natural resources. The recent earthquake shows just how important it is to better understand and predict when these quakes might happen. Earthquakes can be caused by natural shifts in the earth, human activities, or a mix of both. Fortunately, advancements in technology and the availability of more comprehensive data are significantly aiding experts in their quest to better understand earthquakes. In recent years, the ability to gather more detailed and precise data has improved, allowing researchers to study seismic activity with greater accuracy than ever before. Advanced computer models now play a crucial role simulating earthquake scenarios and helping scientists explore the complex factors that can trigger these events. These models, combined with sophisticated seismic monitoring systems, provide a clearer picture of how tectonic shifts occur and how stress builds up along fault lines. In addition, modern seismic monitoring networks are expanding globally, offering real-time tracking of even the smallest tremors. This level of detail is giving researchers new insights into earthquake patterns, allowing them to map out areas of potential risk more effectively. With each new breakthrough, we are getting closer to the possibility of better predicting earthquakes, or at least identifying warning signs that could provide critical time for early alerts. As this technology continues to evolve, the hope is that it will eventually enable us to not only predict earthquakes with greater precision, but also mitigate their impact, protecting lives and infrastructure. The unpredictability of earthquakes still makes them a major concern for communities in these areas. Should oil and gas extraction practices be strictly regulated to prevent potential seismic activities, or does the economic benefit outweigh the risks? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.